I should have known something was wrong the moment we stepped into my parents' house. But denial has a strange way of wrapping itself around you when you've been trained your whole life to stay small. I followed Ethan into the dining room, trying to ignore the familiar tightness in my chest, the kind that always bloomed when I came home. This is an original story written by the author of the Revenge Sins channel, built from familiar social issues with the purpose of helping viewers reflect, heal, and draw meaningful lessons. The content is not intended to depict any real individual. If you're listening, stay with me. Stories like this matter, and yours might too. My mother, Mary Ann, glanced up from arranging napkins. "Oh, you're here," she said, as if we were a mild inconvenience. "Lily, set the table. Harper is exhausted." Harper, of course, was stretched across the sofa scrolling through her phone, freshly manicured fingers tapping like she was conducting an orchestra of self-absorption. I moved toward the cupboard, already slipping into the role they expected: quiet, useful, barely visible. My father, Thomas, poured himself a bourbon. "Ethan," he said, nodding toward a chair. "Sit. Let the women handle things." Ethan met my eyes, a flicker of something sharp passing through his expression, but he sat down without a word. Dinner began the same way every Sunday did Mary Ann, asking Harper about her stressful week, Harper embellishing every detail, Thomas listening with the reverence of a man attending a sermon. Ethan and I stayed quiet. We always did. Then the shift happened. Thomas set down his fork, wiped his mouth, and looked at me with that flat familiarity he reserved for mailmen and restaurant servers. "Lily," he said, "we need to discuss your wedding." For a split second, I thought he might ask about the venue Ethan and I loved, or the date, or anything remotely normal. Instead, he said, almost casually, "Your grandmother's fund is gone. We reassigned it to Harper." My breath snagged in my throat. "Gone." "What do you mean, gone?" Mary Ann chimed in before he could answer. "Sweetheart, Harper has had a very difficult year. She needs stability. She's thinking of a future with that young man she met 2 weeks ago. A proper wedding will give her confidence." Harper finally looked up, lips curled. "Honestly, sis, you wouldn't know what to do with $18,500. A courthouse ceremony fits you better." Something inside me splintered a soundless crack only I could hear. Ethan's hand, resting on his water glass, tightened until his knuckles blanched. He did not interrupt. He simply watched them with a stillness that made the air hum. Thomas waved a dismissive hand. "You're practical, Lily. You've always managed with less. Harper needs more." I swallowed hard. Grandma left that money for me, and we decided Harper needed it more. Mary Ann replied, "Do not make this dramatic." The room pressed in around me. The silverware clinked. Harper smirked. My parents returned to eating chicken as if they hadn't just gutted me at their dining table. And Ethan finally set down his glass. Everything was about to change, though none of them saw the storm forming beside me. If you're still here, keep listening. What happened next is why I'm telling this story at all. Long before that dinner, my life had been shaped by a single word my parents loved to use: fine. They said it so often it became my name. I remember being 8, watching Harper throw herself on the floor because her shoelaces were the wrong color. Mom knelt beside her, stroking her hair like she was made of glass. Dad glanced at me standing quietly in the doorway. "Lily is fine," he said. "She doesn't need all this attention." I learned something. Then, silence was expected of me. Noise belonged to Harper. Years later, when I was 14, I overheard my parents in the kitchen. Harper had failed a quiz and was sobbing like the world had ended. Mom said, "She feels things so deeply. Poor baby." Dad sighed. "At least Lily is steady. That girl could raise herself." Their voices carried down the hallway straight into my chest. When I turned 16, I asked for one thing, a family dinner at my favorite Italian place. Nothing fancy, just an hour where I existed. The evening came. I waited in the living room wearing the only dress I owned that felt special. 6 o'clock passed. Then 7. I kept checking the driveway for headlights. The door burst open just after 8. Mom carried bags of clothes. Dad followed, guiding Harper, who clung to him dramatically, mascara streaking down her face. What happened, I asked. Mom didn't even look at me. Harper had a crisis. Her boyfriend did not text her back. She was inconsolable. Lily. We had to take her shopping. Dad patted Harper's back. She was really shaken. But it's my birthday dinner, I said softly. Mom finally turned toward me with an expression that made me feel foolish for even speaking. Lily, not now. Your sister is hurting. We can order pizza later. Harper sniffled loudly, leaning into Mom's arms. Dad added, You're fine, Lily. You're always fine. I went to my room, closed the door, and took off the dress. I ate a granola bar in silence while downstairs they comforted Harper like she had survived a tragedy. Moments like that stacked on top of one another for years, small cuts that never healed. So when my father said he gave my wedding fund to Harper, it wasn't a new wound. It was the oldest one reopening. By the time I finished high school, I had already learned that needing my parents only guaranteed disappointment. So I worked. I took shifts at a bakery before sunrise and cleaned office buildings after dark. Every paycheck meant one step closer to escaping the house where my voice never seemed to matter. When I got my acceptance letter from the University of Oregon, I ran into the kitchen holding the envelope like it was burning in my hands. I got in, I said, breathless. I actually got in. Dad didn't look up from his newspaper. Good. Make sure you understand your loan terms. Money is tight. Mom nodded without enthusiasm. And remember, Lily, Harper is applying to private schools. We will need to support her emotions through that process. 2 months later, I watched Harper pose next to a used Audi A4 in our driveway. A gift to boost her confidence after she failed her driving test the first time. Mom clapped like Harper had won a national award. Dad told her she deserved nice things. No one asked how I would get to campus. I moved out the day after graduation. I packed 2 suitcases in a cardboard box while my parents argued upstairs about wallpaper for Harper's new bedroom. No one came down to help me. College was not easy, but the struggle was mine. I worked in a campus cafe, tutored freshmen, and answered phones in a dental office across town. I paid every bill on time. I learned to cook cheap meals and fix things with YouTube videos and stubbornness. The only person who had ever prepared something just for me was my grandmother, Eleanor. Before she died, she took my hand and whispered, "This is for your future, sweetheart, for the day you choose happiness." She left me a wedding fund, $18,500, not wealth, just proof that someone had seen me. I met Ethan on a rainy Tuesday evening, the kind of night when the sky felt heavy enough to crush you. I ducked into the Seattle Public Library, dripping onto the floor, clutching a notebook that had seen better years. A free financial workshop was being held in a back room, mostly attended by people who looked as tired as I felt. I slipped into a seat near the back. A moment later, someone sat beside me. I glanced up and saw a man in a worn denim jacket, hair damp from the rain, breath slightly uneven like he had run the last block to make it on time. He offered a small smile. "If the rain gets any worse, we might need a canoe to get home." His tone was gentle, careful. I smiled back. "At least the class is free." "That helps." "I am Ethan," he said quietly. "Lily." The instructor began talking about budgeting, but Ethan's presence made the room feel less bleak. When the class ended, he hesitated before standing. "Do you want to grab a coffee? You know, since we're already soaked." I almost said no. I had spent years teaching myself not to burden anyone with my existence, but something in his eyes steady. Sincere made the word catch in my throat. Sure, I said. We walked to a small diner around the corner, the kind with buzzing lights and mismatched mugs. We slid into a vinyl booth, and something unexpected happened. He asked questions. Real questions. And he waited for real answers. What do you do for work? He asked. I am a junior graphic designer. I work weekends at a coffee shop to cover rent. He nodded with genuine respect. That is not easy. You must be disciplined. No one has ever said that to me, I murmured. He noticed, but didn't pry. When I asked about him, he shrugged. I work in software, nothing glamorous. He said it so simply I believed him. Hours passed. We talked about childhood, fear, loneliness, things people usually hide. I told him about Harper, about being overshadowed, the birthday that never happened. Ethan didn't flinch. He didn't minimize it. He didn't give advice. That sounds lonely, he said softly. It was, you should not have had to get used to that. Something in my chest loosened. Walking back to the bus stop, he kept a polite distance, hands in his jacket pockets. Lily, he said before I boarded, I would like to see you again, only if you want that. I surprised myself by saying, I do. I had no idea my life had just shifted quietly, gently into a new direction. A year into our relationship, Ethan's apartment had become the only place where my body ever felt unclenched. It was modest and quiet, shaped by someone who preferred function over display. Nothing about it suggested wealth, and I never questioned that. I did not need extravagance. I just needed peace. One Saturday morning, Ethan hopped into the shower while I sat at his desk writing a grocery list. I opened the top drawer searching for a pen. Instead, I found a folder, a thick one, labeled in clean block letters, Acquisition Proposal Roads Analytics. My breath stuttered. I pulled it out and opened it before I could convince myself not to. Inside was a term sheet with numbers that did not make sense. An offer totaling $14,800,000, clauses about equity transfer, notes from attorneys. The paper trembled in my hands. Every assumption I had about Ethan about our shared simplicity went soft at the edges. The bathroom door opened. Ethan stepped out, towel around his shoulders, hair dripping. He froze when he saw the folder. Lily, he said, voice low. Please put that down. I set it on the desk like it was something dangerous. Is this real? He exhaled and sat across from me. Yes, it is. You told me you worked in software. I do. I also built something, a tool for credit unions. It grew faster than I expected. Then why hide this? My voice cracked. You live like you can barely afford groceries. His expression tightened with something like fear. Because money ruins things. It changes how people see me. I needed someone who didn't. I swallowed hard. You thought I would treat you differently. I hoped you would not, he said quietly. But hope is not the same as certainty. I have been used before, Lily, by women who loved the lifestyle, not the person. That is not me. I know that now, he said, leaning forward. You never asked for anything. You never implied I should give more. You looked at me like I was enough without a single dollar attached to my name. I felt heat rise in my eyes. You could have told me. I was afraid, he admitted. Afraid of losing the one place in my life that felt honest. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then I reached for his hand. Ethan, I whispered, I do not care about the money. I care about you. He let out a shaky laugh, relief marking every line of his face. He pulled a small box from his pocket, hesitating only long enough to meet my eyes. I was planning to wait, he said. But since we are here, Lily, I want to build a life with you, a real one. Will you marry me? Emotion surged through me, steady and bright. Yes, I said, I will. And just like that, The truth between us grew deeper, not because of what he revealed, but because of what we chose to keep. 2 months after Ethan proposed, we returned to my parents' house for another Sunday dinner. I told myself it would be fine, but my stomach tightened the moment we stepped inside. Harper sat on the couch, scrolling her phone. She didn't look up. Mom appeared in the doorway. "You're late," she said. "Dinner is ready. Lily, help set the table." Ethan touched my back lightly as if asking whether I wanted to stay. I forced a smile and went to the kitchen. The old rhythm pulled me under move quietly. Take up little space. Don't make trouble. At the table, Harper launched into a monologue about a man she had been seeing for exactly 2 weeks. "He might be the one," she said, twirling her hair. "We are talking about big things. Very big." Mom nodded eagerly. "We will support whatever you decide." "Sweetheart, weddings are investments." Dad grunted in agreement. Ethan remained still beside me, watching, absorbing everything. The meal dragged on until Dad finally cleared his throat. "We need to revisit the wedding discussion." My body went rigid. Ethan placed his fork down. "What discussion?" Dad looked annoyed. "Family matters." "Ethan." I spoke before Ethan could respond. "If this is about the fund, I already know." Dad interrupted. "It is not a discussion. The decision has been made." Harper smirked, as if she already knew the script. Dad folded his hands. "Your grandmother's $18,500 has been reallocated. Harper deserves a proper wedding when the time comes. You will manage something smaller." I felt Ethan's attention sharpen beside me. He shifted, sitting straighter. I whispered, "That money was for me." Mom waved her hand. "Do not make this emotional. You always land on your feet. Harper needs more support. She is sensitive." Harper lifted her wine glass. "It is just money." "Lily, and you barely care about things like this." "You are practical," Dad added. "A courthouse ceremony fits your style. Nothing extravagant." My throat tightened. My parents resumed eating, as if the matter were settled. Ethan stood. The chair scraped back with a sharp, deliberate sound. Everyone froze. Dad frowned. "Sit down, Ethan." "No," Ethan said. His voice carried a weight that made Dad's brow twitch. "You took money that did not belong to you," Mom sputtered. "It is family money. It was placed in trust for Lily." Ethan replied, "And you misappropriated it." Harper scoffed. "Are you serious right now?" Ethan reached into his jacket and placed a folder on the table. "This is a legal notice drafted by my attorney. If the full amount is not returned within 48 hours, we will file. And when the Internal Revenue Service reviews the transfer, I doubt you will enjoy the outcome." Dad grabbed the folder, skimmed the first page, and went pale. "What is this a consequence?" Ethan said. Harper leaned forward, her voice honey-sweet. "Ethan, we got off on the wrong foot. You never mentioned you had resources. We could talk." Ethan stepped back, disgust flickering in his eyes. "Harper, move away from me." Mom clutched her napkin. "Ethan, this is unnecessary. We are family. You became my concern the moment you stole from Lily," Ethan said. "She has spent her entire life being dismissed in this house. That ends today." Dad slammed his palm on the table. "You do not get to dictate. I am not dictating," Ethan said calmly. "I am protecting." The room went silent. I rose slowly. "You never saw me." "Not once." Mom's face twisted. "Lily, stop this. You are overreacting." "No," I said. "I am finally reacting." Ethan reached for my hand. The moment our fingers linked, something in me steadied. Dad's voice cracked. "Wait. Let us talk this through. We can arrange something. Maybe we should discuss Ethan's business." "We are leaving," Ethan said. I nodded, my voice soft but certain. "I am done begging to matter. And together." We walked out of the house that had never felt like home. The silence in Ethan's car felt heavy, but not uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that comes after something irreversible. I stared out the window, replaying every word my parents had thrown at me. Somewhere between the murmuring streets and the dim glow of passing headlights, my phone buzzed. Mom. I let it ring until it stopped. A moment later, another vibration, then another. Take your time, Ethan said quietly. I opened the messages anyway. Lily, call me. Your father is very upset. We can fix this. Then another. Shorter. You embarrassed us. Before I could react. A new message lit the screen. Harper. So dramatic. Ethan is rich and you did not tell me, selfish. Ethan glanced at my hands shaking around the phone. Block them, he said. You do not deserve this. I cannot. I whispered. What if something happens? What if something real happens? The police or the hospital will call. He said. Right now, they are pulling the same strings they have always used to control you. When we got back to our apartment, more messages waited. Mom, I cannot sleep. You have hurt us deeply. Dad, call me. Now. Harper. This is why no one takes you seriously. My chest tightened. I paced the small living room while Ethan watched me, arms folded, patient but firm. I need to say something. I said, if I do not say it now, they will keep clawing their way back in. Ethan stepped toward me. Then say it, but do it for you, not for them. I dialed my father. He answered on the first ring. Lily, he said, breathless. Thank God. Listen, do not speak. I said. The words surprised even me. If you interrupt me, I will hang up. Silence. For 26 years, you have told people I was fine. I said. You used that word to excuse everything you did not want to deal with. Every time Harper cried, you ran. Every time I needed you, you said I was strong enough to handle it. Mom's voice floated faintly in the background. Lily, please, I am speaking, I said. You stole the only thing Grandma left me, not because Harper needed it. Because it never occurred to you that I might need something too. You chose the child who demanded everything and ignored the one who asked for nothing. Dad exhaled shakily. We love you. You are misinterpreting. I am done. I said, return the money. After that, do not contact me. Not for birthdays. Not for holidays. Not for apologies you do not mean. Lily, Dad pleaded. We are your parents. You were my providers. I said, but you were never my family. I ended the call. The room stayed quiet. Ethan stepped closer and rested his forehead gently against mine. You did it, he whispered. My breath trembled, but the weight inside me had shifted lighter, clearer. I did, I said, and I am not going back. The morning after the call, the transfer notification appeared in my account $18,500, plus a small note from Dad that read, For Lily. Love. Dad. Ethan saw it before I said anything. A payment is not an apology. He said, It changes nothing. I know. And I did. The money felt like a stain I could not wash off. By the third day, the messages slowed. The last one came from Mom. We did our part. Now you do yours. Come home so we can talk like adults. I blocked her without replying. That weekend, Ethan suggested we drive to Cannon Beach. I agreed, needing distance from everything familiar. As soon as we reached the shoreline, he took my hand. You have been quiet, he said. I keep thinking about Grandma. I murmured. She wanted that money to give me something happy. But now, when I look at it, all I feel is what they did, how little they thought of me. I cannot use it for my wedding. I will not. Ethan nodded. Then what do you want to do with it? I hesitated. Help someone who grew up like me. Someone invisible. Maybe. Girls who are the first in their family to try for college. The ones who work night shifts and study on their lunch breaks. His eyes softened. Then we build that. We build it in her name. I felt something settle in my chest, something right. The Eleanor Carter Grant, I said quietly. Perfect, he replied. We stood there as waves curled against the shore, and for the first time, I felt like my life belonged entirely to me. The wedding planning came easier than I expected. Without my family's interference, decisions took minutes, not months. Ethan and I sat cross-legged on our living room floor, circling items on a list. Cake, he asked. Chocolate. Venue. A small orchard near Hood River. Guest list. People who have loved us without conditions. He smiled. That is a very short list. I laughed a sound that felt new and clean. Short is better. On the day of the ceremony, I walked down the aisle alone. No father at my elbow. No mother crying for attention. No Harper demanding the spotlight. Just me. When I reached Ethan under the wooden arch, he whispered, "You look like you finally stepped into your own skin." "I feel like it," I said. We exchanged vows, simple, honest. Nothing borrowed from anyone else's script. Our friends cheered. Ethan kissed me with the certainty of someone who intended to stay. Later, as we danced in the orchard grass, he leaned close. "This is the life you deserved since the beginning." I rested my head against him. "This is the life I am choosing." And saying it aloud felt like opening a door to everything that came next. 3 years passed quietly, the kind of quiet that felt earned. Ethan and I moved to Bend, Oregon, into a small mid-century house with creaking floors and wide windows. I started a design studio out of the spare room. He consulted part-time and spent the rest of his hours cooking elaborate meals he insisted were experiments. Our dog, Kona, slept everywhere except the bed he was supposed to use. One afternoon, a letter arrived addressed in careful handwriting. I opened it at the kitchen table while Ethan sliced vegetables. "It is from the Grant," I said. "The girl from last year." He stopped chopping, listening. I read aloud. "You did not just pay my tuition. You showed me that girls like us are not invisible. I will carry that forever." My voice wavered. Ethan reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Your grandmother would be proud." I nodded, unable to speak for a moment. The grant had become more than charity. It felt like a promise kept. A week later, I ran into Harper at a grocery store in Portland. I had driven down for a client meeting and stopped to grab coffee. She was standing near the self-checkout, hair unkempt, expression brittle. Her eyes widened. "Lily," I stiffened. "Hello?" "Harper." She looked me over, searching for something to criticize, but her gaze fell instead. "You look different." "I am different," I said. She shifted her weight. "Look, things have been rough. My marriage ended. I moved back home. Mom and Dad are stressed. We have all been through a lot." I said nothing. Harper's voice thinned. "Maybe we could get coffee sometime, catch up, start fresh." There was a time I would have grasped at that invitation like a lifeline. Now it felt like a tug trying to pull me backward. "I hope you heal," I said softly, "but I am not part of that journey anymore." Her mouth tightened. She stepped aside without another word. Back home that evening, I sat on the porch while the sun dipped behind the pines. Ethan came out with 2 mugs of tea and kissed the top of my head. "You okay?" he asked. "Yes," I said. For the first time. Yes. Kona trotted between us, tail thumping. The world felt steady in a way I had never imagined possible. I looked toward the horizon and let the truth settle inside me. They taught me to disappear. I said, "But disappearing is not the same as being free." Ethan rested his hand on mine. "You are free now. If my story stayed with you, share it. Someone out there needs a reminder that choosing yourself is not betrayal, it is survival. And if you want to hear more stories like this, stay close. There is always another voice waiting to be seen.